Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is Skippy. He's taking the place of Buddy today. And, of course, his loyal ally, Peter Lavelle, co-founder of the Gaggle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, you know what this means. It's Sunday. And I'm glad Skippy is here to witness. We are about to do the thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the week. It's going to be a bloodbath. So I will go first. I mean, I'm sure you probably had this on your list, but my big thumbs down for the week is this ghastly birthday bash by Barack Obama, which by putting out the fake news a few days earlier. It was, I mean, he was planning hundreds of guests and, you know, endless flunkies and whatnot. And they said, whoa, we're scaling it back. It's just going to be close family and friends. Classic fake news. It was a huge bash. The photographs published in the Daily Mail. I think it's a complete embarrassment and shows really what a vacuous figure Barack Obama was. I mean, he fooled so many people in 2007, 2008 when he first emerged. I think I was fooled as well by him. Yeah, and you know, this really narcissistic exercise. I mean, at the time of, you know, about the pandemic, how, you know, people have not been allowed to attend weddings, they've not been allowed to attend funerals. Not being allowed to visit their elderly relatives in nursing homes. People are wearing
chemo, heart conditions. Everything.
Exactly. And for him to launch this ridiculous, extravagant party, 60th birthday, who cares? It's an absolute national embarrassment.
Yeah, and it shows the hypocrisy of it all. I mean, you know, we don't have to do it, but I mean, again, all of a large number of the people talking about we have to mask up and vaccine and all of that, and they don't wear their mask in public and all of that. And Barack Obama, you know, you would think, you know, you want to be relevant somehow. Why don't you be relevant in a way that's meaningful instead of a narcissistic way? Right. Okay, and your taste in music is awful. Pearl Jam, really? Okay, I mean, it says it all. But the professional managerial class, they did, again, this is the new serfdom. We do what we say, but, you know, we will do differently because we're just better than you.
We're better than you. We deserve it.
We know what's good for you. That's okay, right. We know what's good for you. Yeah. But we're of a completely different caliber and elk, you know. And anyway, we have all the power.
Exactly. You know, well, we deserve it because we are better than you and we're superior to you. So we deserve these big, lavish parties with celebrities because we've done so much for humanity. And so we deserve our rewards. You, however, have done nothing. You are nothing. So mask up, maintain your social distance, and don't you dare go to parties with your friends or have people over for dinner. Just do as you're told.
And keep that carbon foot
exactly.
down. But, you know, John Kerry can fly in on his private jet, okay? Okay, because it'll compensate because he's doing God's work, okay? Exactly. All right, I have a thumbs up, a rare one. Tucker Carlson, wonderful week in Budapest, wonderful stories from Hungary. I think this is the great sin of Tucker Carlson during the past week, that he unveiled a different narrative about the leader of the country, Viktor Orban, okay? So basically, he's letting the viewers to decide, you know, read the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, then you can see what the man has to say for himself. You judge. Right. During the interview, which I thought was extremely good, I wish it could have gone on for much longer, as usual, but George, every question and every answer was amazingly straightforward. There was no, you know, secret punches and, you know, trying to create. Tucker Carlson didn't go in with a preconceived narrative. He just said, what about this? What about that? And we got answers that are very, very straightforward. A really gentle thug, wouldn't you say, George?
I think what you said is very straightforward. I mean, for instance, when he was asked a question about Germany and how Merkel had let in these people, about 1 million or whatever it was, people into Germany. And he said, well, and he asked, what has been the effect on Germany? And Orban says, something like, well, kind of diplomacy kind of prevents me from addressing that question. But, it's that Germany made its choice. Germany is going to have to live with this choice. It's not our choice. And so we didn't make it. I thought it was a very honest way of speaking. Also very honest was when Tucker Carlson said, you do realize that there's going to be a massive effort to unseat you in next year's election. And he said, yeah, we realize it and we are ready for it. In other words, we know what these elections are about, what they call democracy. Brussels, Washington, they have no respect for democracy. I mean, they intend to spend, I don't know how many millions in order to manipulate the vote, against the leaders that they don't like. So you absolutely have to be prepared for what's coming.
And you can speak to this better than I can, but a wide array of strange bedfellows joining up to try to defeat this man. Okay, yes. So I mean, obviously, you and I are going to be keeping an eye on this. One more thing I'd like to mention from the Tucker Carlson coverage. I thought going to the border with Serbia, that was a very, very eye-opening experience. So it's not really that difficult to secure your border, is it, George? I mean, we see, and I got to throw in Fox News here. I mean, this whole maelstrom about, talking about the border and all that, but this really short clip, is that, oh, we helicoptered there, there's a fence, and someone crosses over, they take your picture, and they escort you back. That's kind of simple.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly. And of course, the same thing should be true in the United States, but it isn't. So, we can't turn the children back. Of course you can. Children come over unaccompanied, thinking that, once they're here, then they can bring in their parents. No, you arrive here, you put on a plane and you're flown out of the country back to where you came from. You get the whole idea, we can't turn away children. Of course you can turn away children. Because it's a scam. It can be done. But, but when Trump raised the issue, there was such massive hysteria. And, it made something that was actually relatively straightforward. Immense problem. No, there's no way. We use high tech, sensors. That's how we're going to address the problem with sensors. No one knows exactly how would sensors stop people coming over the border. But sensors. That's the thing.
But what the interesting thing is that what the most important takeaway from that border visit is that people don't come because they know what's going to happen to them. That's an immigration border policy because there is a border. Right. When there isn't one there, you can't predict the outcome. Okay, right. Or there'll be multiple outcomes. So if you come to the Hungarian border, you cross it illegally, you will be sent back, and that's why there aren't hordes of people on the Serbian side waiting to go over because that's not going to work. This is not the way in. Okay, so I just thought, and I give Tucker Carlson such kudos for such courage because he really was roasted. Okay, right. I mean, and then with all of this mythology, and of course ties in, he's a white supremacist and all this, as we reported before and all of that. I don't know. It was a very good segment, something that cable news. I can't remember the last time, other than staged false flags, wars, beautiful missiles and all that. I mean, somebody actually did some investigative reporting.
Right. Exactly. It's what it did is you went there. You have demonized this country. You have demonized this leader. And what are you supposed to do? If you have a platform, you're a person who has a big following. You go. Let's find out. Let's see what's really going on here. Let's talk to the man. And find out what he's about. No, you can't do that. You're just supposed to sit here in Washington and just demonize. You just keep throwing out new and new insults about him. No, you're just supposed to stay here. You call him a dictator. You call him an authoritarian. You call him a totalitarian. You call him anti-Semitic, a racist, white supremacist. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the job of a journalist. You sit behind a desk and throw out mean words about someone. You're not supposed to do any reporting. You're not supposed to go and visit something and find out.
Yeah, particularly the most scathing descriptions of Erdogan. I wonder if any of those people have ever visited Hungary or ever talked to a supporter of Viktor Erdogan. I doubt it.
No, that's right. And I think he himself said something of the people who are talking about it know nothing about Hungary. They don't even know about Hungary's recent past, let alone Hungarian history. And so, they don't know anything about it. They suddenly found out, hey, Hungary is, that's a really bad place. There's a really bad leader. So let me sit and just pontificate. I mean, that's what we're talking about. This Matt Iglesias, suddenly, an expert on Hungary and pontificating away about, what a rinky-dink country it is. Well, it can't really do anything. I mean, it's totally useless. Other than a few pretty buildings, there's nothing there.
Isn't it interesting? These types of media, these media types, when they designate someone as a dictator, they're an expert on that dictator. Right. Isn't it really remarkable? It's really remarkable. I mean, who's a dictator? Oh, I know a lot about dictators. Okay, right. Yeah. And they just graft it on. Okay, you're up.
Okay. So the next part was I don't know. You may disagree with it, which is the response of the conservatives towards the Andrew Cuomo report. Now, I read. I didn't read the whole report. It was 140 pages. I read the executive summary, which went through the list of the complainants and what they complained about him. I mean, the impression that you get is kind of he's a bit of a pig. He gets off. He's a middle-aged guy who gets off talking in a smutty way with young women. Not a good thing, definitely. But kind of, getting all horrified, all the Sean Hannitys, oh my God, this is so horrific. What do they think is going to happen? Let's say Cuomo is overthrown. Let's say Cuomo is impeached or is forced to resign or whatever. All you get is just somebody, an even a more woke person in there. We're going to
James. Yeah, Patricia James might be
exactly James or AOC or Gilligan, one of those Gillibrand, one of those people in there. How is that in any way good for conservatives? It means this now becomes the norm, constantly terrorizing, harassing, particularly men, because generally these types of things are usually done by men over this. Now, I don't have much sympathy for Cuomo because Cuomo has never had any sympathy for others. He would be the first to scream, this person must resign for inappropriate behavior. So he's a total hypocrite. But I don't think conservatives should be playing this game.
I completely categorically agree with you. Okay, he's a creep. Wow. So we knew that. A lot of people knew that. A lot of people covered for him for a very long time. Okay, fine. There are two things that I think are interesting here. First of all, this gives the left liberals a chance to go through the purification process to refine their virtue signaling. Okay, he's not part of our tribe and all of this. Though 12 months ago, this guy was almost, Jesus walking on water to these people.
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. I mean, it's really interesting how, they did that. Oh, that mattered. It didn't exist, didn't happen. Okay, we have to live in the present, always the present here. Okay. The second thing is for me, and I looked at the report too. His behavior is abhorrent, disgusting, and I believe those women. Okay, I absolutely believe them. But as disgusting as that is, what about the nursing homes? Yeah. What about the thousands and thousands of people that died? No one's taking responsibility for that. Yes. So we could all abhor bad behavior, of course. But I mean, I think there are worse things that happened under his watch, and I think this is brushing it aside.
And there's a reason why.
And other governors did exactly the same.
That's it.
And they're Democrats, okay? So what we do is, we'll trash Cuomo, get rid of him, and everything is okay now, okay? And then you have Letitia James there, basically doing exactly the same thing, with one caveat here. When you look at Cuomo, he is a very weird political animal. He's a Democrat, always told the narratives, but he's a pretty creepy guy. Actually, even politically, okay. And he's actually, like so many other ones. He's basically like Joe Biden. He's actually a liberal Republican. But he wants to be in that party.
No, that's why he never got on with de Blasio. He always thought de Blasio was just a kind of a ridiculous, clownish figure, playing with these silly leftish games. And I mean, you're absolutely right to believe him. I mean, even the few things that we get, like on YouTube, where he's at some dinner, and then he's got his daughter sitting on one side of him, and then there's some woman, presumably somebody who works for him, standing there, and he's making some crude comments like, hey, you must eat the big sausage, when he talks in that New York sausage. That's who he is. So that's why I believe that he talks like that to all the young women.
Well, and it's even more disgusting, at least when it comes to the moral dimension here. I'm Italian. I've known a lot of Italians, people of Italian descent, growing up and really abhorring, this kind of mafia, tough guy, machismo stuff. I mean, the Sopranos, we all love the Sopranos, but even within the Sopranos, there's a discussion of Italianness. Remember that, okay? Yeah, I mean the boyfriend of Tony Soprano's psychiatrist, he's really I don't want to be associated.
That's it.
And so after decades of kind of shedding that, and then Andrew Cuomo brings it right front and center.
Right.
What a schmuck,
Yeah, no, exactly. He plays that. Yeah, that's right. Look, it's what happens when you have family dynasties. I mean, he never had the talent and the genuineness of his father. But how did he get to be governor? Well, he got to be governor because he had a famous father. There's an awful lot of that in American politics. Again, this great democracy that there's family connections that you always determine your political future. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a creepy guy. He's somebody who's absolutely he's the most self-righteous, sanctimonious, ready to destroy other people's careers for doing exactly what he was doing. Again, as we were talking about Obama, he just didn't think the rules applied to him. He's a special person. Hey, I'm a former attorney general. I'm the governor. I can do these things. It doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, and of course, CNN does not equate itself well. I think we've devoted enough time to the creepy Cuomo brothers. Okay, right. I'm up. Joe Biden's violation of the disregarding the Supreme Court's decision on the evictions moratorium. I don't want to go too much into the whole thing of eviction moratorium, because I think I agree with Justice Kavanaugh is that Congress needs to get its act together and figure out what it's going to do, okay? And so the Supreme Court came down, I think this was a month ago, they came down and said, hey, you guys are just way out of bounds, and throw it to the proper, and this is something you and I have talked about on the gaggle repeatedly. Congress has to take responsibility for these things here. Then the Biden administration, like wimps that they are, say, well, the CDC, well, since when did the CDC make law? They don't, okay? So everyone, with the exception of Kavanaugh, everyone is a weasel in all of this, okay? And how it's been politicized. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the eviction moratorium. I think it's a very complicated question, and I don't think there's any easy solutions. But the way no one is taking responsibility for it, like Nancy Pelosi, oh, they just came up on it. We just thought about it. No, you're a liar. Right. You're a liar. The Supreme Court ruled a month ago. It's been on your desk. Okay, so it just seems to me that, and then this whole thing about separation of powers. I have to really implore upon everyone. This is dangerous stuff. It's very dangerous. Just arbitrarily, we're just not going to recognize. That's why we have the checks and balances.
Oh, I think that's right. I mean, I don't actually have such a positive view of Kavanaugh, because Kavanaugh kind of hemmed and hawed essentially in his ruling, because the others, the four justices, said that basically it's unconstitutional, we should just end it. And then he said, well, yeah, I agree with you, but let's just simply wait it out, because it's going to come to an end soon enough anyway. But of course, when it did come to an end, they immediately moved to renew it, as it was always obvious that they were going to do. But I think the problem is that obviously, you want to be sympathetic. No one likes throwing anyone out onto the streets and so on. On the other hand, why is it okay to screw over landlords, but not the banks? I mean, people who are paying mortgages, they don't get a holiday. You still got to go on paying your mortgage. You got a loan from the bank. You still got to go on paying your interest on your loan. No tax holiday. COVID, no COVID, you pay your damn taxes. So it's they're kind of selectively because most landlords are actually small owners. I mean, basically people, own an apartment, 2 apartments, they rent out. So these are
passive income.
Yeah,
passive
exactly.
Income.
These are small businesses. It's not the Democrats' constituency. So they felt that, the hell with them. We'll screw them over. Get some nice, easy brownie points with the AOCs of the world, and there won't really be any political consequences for us. If we were to attack the banks and say that you have a mortgage holiday, then that's very serious. Banks are big donors. They are powerful institutions. You don't want to mess with them. So, small, family, mom and pop, landlords. Yeah, the hell with them. Who cares?
Yeah, it shows this lack of taking responsibility. We knew all this was coming, and they weren't prepared how to deal with it. One of the most amazing things, I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I mean, billions and billions of dollars were allocated to help resolve this issue. They don't even know how to pay it out. Okay, this is just more gross incompetence. They sign a check, 100 billion, another 200 billion. You have no responsibility how it's going to be spent, where it's going to go. It just shows this complete irresponsibility. Like I said, we could do a separate video on it. I think this whole moratorium on paying rent and stuff is very, very complicated, because just as you pointed out, what about all the other people that did?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. So, it's complicated, but for me, watching the executive branch and the legislative branches keep punting. Okay. You can't keep punting. Okay. A lot of people's lives are at stake here.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right.
Right.
Okay. So going back to your point about Orban and the authoritarianism that he's accused of. Now, this is not a good time for Western countries to be talking about authoritarianism. We have, the Biden administration, I said already basically mandating vaccines for all federal employees. And now we're finding all sorts of creative ways in which to put pressure on everybody else, not even within the government, to mandate vaccines. So in other words, on businesses, with banks and so on. So this is it sounds like authoritarianism to me, and that's leave aside when the media, the media, which on a regular basis kicks off people that don't follow the approved narrative. So you've got people like we've already talked about, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Naomi Wolf, Alex Berenson. These are not fascists. These are not members of the neo-Nazi parties. These are calm, reasonable public intellectuals. They're getting kicked off.
Liberals.
Yeah, liberals, exactly. No, these aren't even Trump supporters. They're getting kicked off. So not a good look if you're going to be denouncing what is Orban doing with the media. Yeah, what are you doing about the media? I mean, and of course, we know in the last election where the media, which crushed a very important story, the story about Hunter Biden's laptop, and kind of information people need to have before they go and vote. That didn't seem to arouse any indignation, and we can be sure that the big tech will be doing exactly the same thing in 2022 and 2024. Crush any story that goes against their favorite candidate. So I just don't think that we're in a good position to be lecturing others on authoritarianism.
Well, and add to that, where you and I could say something about the pandemic and the reaction to it, and you and I can be disappeared. But the same words could be mouthed on the major networks, and nothing happens to them whatsoever. I mean, we don't even have to go back years of the conspiracy theory called Russiagate, and no consequences for them. No. Okay. The more you try to shut down the public sphere, the more it creates doubts, and that creates conspiracy theories.
Exactly.
Okay? And remember, folks, there are conspiracies out there. And in my turn, the Office of Inspector General has reported that dozens of contacts with the media were made by the FBI, and particularly in 2016, 2017. George, have you heard of anyone being prosecuted for that?
Yeah.
It's really quite amazing. Again, you have these, the FBI, the DOJ, they're supposed to be the pillars of decency and the rule of law and all those other nice things here. Apparently, it's just the opposite. Okay, I mean, do you think if someone was leaking in the FBI against the Biden administration, you think we'd hear about that, George? I bet we would, real fast.
Very fast, yeah. No, it's absolutely right. And when you think about the Russiagate, which is a horrific story. The unmasking of Flynn, which no one has been held to account. The Flynn Kislyak call, which was leaked to the media, no one's been held to account for that. And then the one person who was supposedly held to account, Kevin Kleinsmith, just walked away. The guy forged a document for a court, for a legal document. He altered in order to deceive the FISA court. It's hard to think of a more serious, more egregious crime. He gets a tap on the wrist, nothing much. Back, he hasn't even been disbarred. So, these are the sort of the institutions that they'll come down on you like a ton of bricks if they think that you were misleading. And the FBI agents come into your office and ask you all sorts of convoluted, confusing questions, as they did with Flynn. And then they say, oh, he lied to us. And of course, this is all based on notes that they write up afterwards. So there isn't even a recording of the interview. They're ready to prosecute and destroy your life and career. But for themselves, nah, I think we're good. I'll take my full pension. I don't think I should be made to suffer.
Just ask Roger Stone.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
A braggart, someone that was prone to, or his profession was to exaggerate, okay, and look at the full force of the law. A lot of people don't know, and maybe I'm too sentimental, but he's an elderly man. His wife is elderly as well, and she had has health issues. Particularly, she has hearing impairment, and she has these men raiding her house, not understanding what's going on. Right. I'm sure the FBI is really proud. One of them is going to write a book about it and get a deal on CNN, how they terrorized an elderly couple in the morning, okay? Completely unarmed. All they had to do was call the lawyer and say, can you have Roger come down to the station tomorrow morning? We need to talk to him. Sure, no problem. That's all you needed to do.
Absolutely. And it is terrifying. I mean, was it, 25 people? Was it armed men storming into your place? In itself is very dangerous because it's an elderly couple. You could have easily induced a heart attack. It could have gone wrong, because they might have had a gun and they absolutely panicked and they started shooting, and then the people could have got killed. It was an absolute disgrace, and again, as we said before, a national embarrassment for the United States.
Am I up?
Yes.
Okay. The JCPOA. I guess it's dead. Okay. George and I have never really understood why the Biden administration wanted to get back into it. They said they wanted to get back into it, but they really weren't going to do much about getting back into it.
Right.
Okay. And so basically, Iran's position has been in stasis. It's like, so what are you offering? They didn't offer very much. And so it's really gone nowhere. I think you can make an argument either way to go stay out or go in. I'd like to hear both arguments. I have an open mind. The thing that I want everyone to know that I was for the agreement originally. Again, I'd stress it's probably the only thing the Obama administration that they did in foreign policy that I agree with, because I thought it would be part of a process. I was wrong. And as a matter of fact, we know now because of what was it? What was his name?
Ben Rhodes.
Ben Rhodes. Well, apparently the administration was disingenuous from the get-go. Okay, so a lot of people that are very disingenuous, very dishonest here, and when you have those ingredients, George, you get failure. Okay, so it looks to me that that's kind of a dead letter.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think that I was, to be honest, always skeptical that the Biden administration was serious about it because there were no real upsides for it. I mean, there is no great constituency in the United States for Iran. You've got the powerful Zionist lobby that would be extremely hostile. The Republicans would all be universally against it. And the Democrats themselves are split on the issue with people like Chuck Schumer who are against it. So politically, there were no great advantages to it. So why would they really be that interested? Well, there were some people have loyalty to Obama, and there are people within the administration who still owe fealty to Obama. But that's just not a strong enough reason to go forward. So that's why I think these talks, I mean, we've now had 6 rounds of talks in Vienna. I just know they're just not going anywhere. And and I'm not even sure the Iranians now are particularly interested in going back to something that they have no guarantees that they will survive the next president, who will again walk away from the JCPOA. And the United Nations sanctions, which were a problem for Iran, they're gone, which means that Iran does have now options. They can do business with Russia, they can do business with China. They're not as hampered by this dollar-denominated oil trade as they were before. So, yes, they'd be better off, for a short while, if the sanctions were lifted, but there's no great value added, since it might only be for a short while, and therefore, what is the point of it?
And your point of that, when the agreement was made between the United States and Iran, we live in 2021 right now. It's a very different world. The dropping of the UN sanctions, and if you look in the aggregate, and I'm including the additional Trump sanctions, Iran's position in the region is stronger now than it was when the JCPOA was agreed to. So, one step forward, 2 steps back. Okay, if they were trying to hem Iran in, it has been a complete failure. And we'll end on this one. But on this point here is that it ended in failure because there's no trust. And I'll leave it up to the viewer why that's the case.
I agree. I mean, and I had a little bit related to that as the thumbs down, which was the G7 condemnation of Iran for the attack on this oil tanker near Oman. No evidence has been forthcoming other than the United States assurances that Iran was responsible. But the G7 immediately, yes, we condemn Iranian action, horror. Sure. Now, let's say Iran was behind this. There's no evidence for it, but let's say Iran was behind this. It is remarkable that the G7 never says anything when Israel launches these terrorist attacks on Iran, assassinations of scientists. Israel has also attacked Iranian shipping, using drones on a regular basis. Israel daily bombs Syria. Israel bombs Lebanon. This goes on every day. Where is the G7? Why doesn't the G7 ever speak up about these things?
They're at brunch, George.
Brunch, exactly. And the brunches are pretty good. There's something so, oh God, this is absolutely shocking what Iran has done. Where were you? I mean, yesterday, Israel just launched completely unprovoked, aggressive bombing of Syria. And, as you say, G7's out at brunch, you've got nothing to say.
Yep. I think those champagne brunches kind of dull your senses a little bit anyway. I want to go back do kind of a sidebar on the Hungary story that we did on Urban. It's just that, taking a step back here, it's really, really, it's very short-sighted on the part of the EU to be constantly lecturing Hungary on democratic norms. When we have this term, it's called democracy deficit, and we came up with the term because of the EU. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and so I think it's something that there's again no self-reflection, and I think it denigrates the whole idea of democracy. Democracy is what you say it is. That's a bit rich for me. Okay, why don't we define the process of democracy and that process, if it creates positive outcomes? Because I don't see that in the EU. You have a European Parliament that can't even pass laws. Okay, I mean, really. Okay, right. They're just a rubber stamp. Okay, yeah. Okay, people that were never elected. Okay, it's not about democracy, everyone. The EU is about creating a super state. That's what it is. And they have not asked the member countries and their citizens if they want a super state. So I say, let Viktor Orban and his people decide how they want to govern themselves. Okay. Why that is the business of Brussels, I do not have a clue outside of that they're being informed by ideology.
Yeah, no, I think that's you're absolutely spot on. Because ultimately, who are governments accountable to? They're accountable to their voters. The Hungarian government is accountable to Hungarian voters. Now, do Frenchmen and French women, do they sit there thinking, I'm really, really very worried about Viktor Orban. I don't like what he's doing. I don't like his policies on this LGBTQ education. No, they couldn't care less. Italian voters, they're not sitting there, worrying about the internal affairs of Hungary. So you've got this, European bureaucracy that is, and no one elected them to anything. No one elected Ursula von der Leyen to anything. And then she starts, Hungary is violating our values. And then, of course, they has a nasty side to it, which is, well, we're going to deny them funding. We're going to find ways of funding, which, of course, again, has a political undertone to it, because they want to create as much hardship as possible for Hungary in order to ensure that Orban loses the next year's election. But the point is, as you said, there's no democracy deficit. I mean, basically, these are bureaucrats who are wielding power, but who are unaccountable. There are, no one elected them. These values that they claim to have, whoever voted for these values? I mean, that's the Hungarian people. They vote. They vote for the government that expresses their values. Who's Ursula von der Leyen and the people like her to impose her values and proclaim them to be the European values? No, they're your values. You don't speak for Europe.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting a anti-goulash international come into effect here. Okay, it'll be catchy. You need things to be catchy for people because, like you said, the average French couple and the average Italian couple don't give a hoot one way or another about these things.
No, not at all. That's what the Hungarians want to do. That's what let the Hungarians do it. What do they?
The thing is that if I was like a Frenchman saying, "Why are you expending so much energy on Hungary?" Okay, we got a lot of other problems in the European Union, and it's not the Hungarians, 10 million people, and a guy, he's genuinely popular. Okay, exactly. And for a dictator, he's worried about being reelected next year. I think we got other issues to worry about,
That's
like immigration.
Yeah, like immigration, and the lockdowns and the vaccine passports and all the other things that the French are protesting about. That's what they care about. And they said they're supposed to worry about, Orban has been very bad on the Hungarian media. And is that my problem? What the situation is with the Hungarian media? But this is the mentality of the sort of these European bureaucrats. And so they love this, this super state, but it's ultimately not accountable to anyone, and therefore it's not sustainable. You can't really have a system that nobody voted for and nobody likes. I mean, it's not a project that can ultimately succeed.
These people in Brussels, these have people that wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, worried that some population in the European Union actually likes their leader.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
They have nightmares about it, insomnia. They just can't get over it. Okay, these Hungarians, we've got to save the Hungarians.
That's it, exactly.
The Kurds not too long ago. Remember the Kurds? Now it's the Hungarians.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right. Exactly. It's like people might vote for them. I mean, that's just absolutely horrific. Democracy. No, we can't have that. You vote for whom we tell you to vote. I guess that's it. But it is interesting that this obsession with this tiny country, and it kind of reminds me what happened during the 1990s when there was a kind of an American-European obsession with Serbia. And suddenly, of course, again, everyone suddenly became an expert on Serbia. Country that they never heard of, or anything about its history or language or whatever. And suddenly, everyone was talking about Serbia all the time. Somehow, Serbia also kind of offended the globalist European bureaucratic vision of the world. What they're worried about the fate of their fellow nationals. You can't have that. I mean, we're not supposed to worry about those things. We just all we do we log on to our terminal and that's it. I mean, we're not supposed to worry about what do my fellow countrymen threats that they face. That's not what Europe is about.
So extraordinary to me is that you have this chattering classes clasping at their pearls. It's amazing how they're experts on Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, Hungary. Of course, everyone is an expert on Russia. Okay,
Russia, exactly.
So when these countries or their leaders are designated as the next Hitler, everyone is an expert on it. Okay, it's really quite amazing. Okay, I mean, other countries, very important countries in the world, we don't know anything about them because they're not targeted, okay? Because they're within the ideological fold.
That's it. Exactly right. So my next thumbs down was the New York Times, which wrote an article telling us that the anti-vax campaign is being launched by
drum roll,
Putin. Yeah, so Putin and his henchmen get together and they decide that we need to launch a disinformation campaign about the vaccines. And so again, the New York Times, does its usual thing. Of course, no evidence is presented. They go to the usual sources, Alliance for Securing Democracy. That's one of those little outfits set up by Bill Kristol, in the aftermath of the 2016 election. And they say, yes, well, clearly these are themes that are coming from Russia. And then you ask, what are these themes? Well, apparently one of the themes was that Biden is planning to make it mandatory for people to take the vaccine. This is a disinformation campaign. Very same day, the Washington Post has a story saying that's exactly what the Biden administration is planning on doing. They're planning to make a national campaign to make vaccine mandatory. This is disinformation. I mean, it sounds like pretty accurate information. Whoever's doing it.
What's so extraordinary, I'm glad you sent me that article, but it's like so many other articles, George, where they'll have a hyperlink and you think, well, this is the evidence that they're pointing to. No, it's just a website, okay? These people said it to us.
Right.
Where in the website is the story? It's not there. I mean, RT has been a victim of that so many times. The only upside for that is like when the Guardian or something like that goes after RT. We always win in the comments 9-1, okay, right, all the time. And so they never give any evidence of it. There's no, in that article, it's just evidence-free completely. Yeah. Okay. I mean, okay, fine. Okay, if this is the case, can you show us examples of memes and tweets and, you know, people that are on the record and all of this? Right. Like me saying to you, George, do you think the Martians are behind what's going on in Venezuela? And then you say, well, it could be, Peter. And then I have an informed source, anonymous, that, you know, the Martians are involved. That's how trivial it all is. Yes, yes. And then you send a link in which somebody just simply says it, who in turn, you know, links it to something else. So yeah, that's right. But it's always very funny when they do these things with particularly RT, when they say RT, you know, disinformation, and then you know, they go to this. And again, first of all, RT is invariably, you know, reporting what somebody else had actually reported. But also, you ultimately look at it, you know, even if RT gets something wrong, how many stories has the New York Times got wrong just in the last 5 years? Russiagate, the Afghanistan, the bounty story. So you know, you got, you know, the whole Trump administration. Right, exactly. All of the various hacking stories. You know, that's an awful, you know, and leave aside the Iraq war and the Iraq weapons of mass destruction. That's an awful lot of stories you got wrong. And you're talking about RT, any mistake that RT, well, you know, they were disinformation campaign because they got they got one story wrong. You know, when you have a record like the New York Times, I would shut up about what others are doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You live in a glass house. Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm done with mine. I have to say I'm also done. I don't have anything else. I mean, I think because most of what I was going to say you already said. So, well, so I mean, we can finish off on this and kind of put a bow on this here. I want everybody to know that George and I got to keep a really close eye on what's going on in Hungary. We're really very thankful that George is there, present on the ground, watching all of this. Not just because, you know, George is obviously more of a Hungarian expert than I am. I mean, he is Hungarian descent and he lives there. Okay, you know, he's got a lot of cred, but for me, it's just not the country. It is really a test case about competing ideas and keeping a check on authoritarianism, and not in Budapest, but in other places. Okay, it's a very interesting case study to watch here, and you know, we've shown our biases and prejudices here. I'm for freedom. I'm for people. I'm for democracy that works. Okay, that works. You know, now when people vote, and then you get this bottleneck, and then nothing happens. Okay. But I'd say, that's a very interesting what you said. The contrast between democracy and authoritarianism. Who exactly represents democracy and who represents authoritarianism? Because when you have a group of people who do practice authoritarianism and who are determined to you know, sabotage an election, you know, throw in whatever millions is required. Remember, Hungary is a small country. If you pour in millions and millions of dollars, that's going to have an effect. And so when you do all of that, you know, it's hard to say, well, we represent democracy and Orban represents authoritarianism. So I think it's a very interesting juxtaposition. And again, when we talk about Orban's interview, he just said precisely, you know, that, you know, I am the person who is accountable to voters. I have to go and run for election. The people who are up against me, you know, and who, you know, expend resources to get me out, they're not accountable to any voters. So who's the Democrat? Who's the authoritarian? And also keep in mind, everyone, you know, and George is a really acute expert on the forced regime change and breakup of Yugoslavia. And when we look at the forced regime change playbook today, that is the first iteration of this type, okay? And we've seen it played out in so many other countries. One can make the argument that it was attempted in 2017 when Donald Trump became president. They took this this playbook and they put American features on it, as it were. But we're seeing this being done in a democracy in the European Union, an attempted forced regime change or forced regime outcome, okay? And they're doing it to countries that live up to the democratic standards of how they define it themselves and how the electorate understands it, okay? This is really scary stuff, okay? You know, it's not like Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea. Now they're bringing it to Hungary.
Right, exactly. Bringing it a member of the European Union and a member of NATO. And Hungary's been a loyal member of NATO. But any deviations from the ideology is punished severely because other people might start getting bad ideas. You know, you got to smash the origin of the idea. You know, and because there's Poland and there's Slovenia and Slovakia. They all might start thinking for themselves. We can't have that.
Because you're at the kids' table and remember it. Okay.
Right.
No brunch for you. Okay. Oatmeal.
That's it. That's the worst thing you could say to any EU bureaucrat. No brunch for you.
Okay. All right, everybody. That's it for our thumbs up, thumbs down of the week. This was a really good edition of it. I'm really happy. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. We have the Gaggle store up. George and I have already done 2 Q&As. George has gone out on his own. Like a real hero, and then his first live stream. I'm going to follow suit very soon. What else have I forgotten?
And we're going to do a YouTube.
We're going to do a super chat
in the next few days. So we're going to advertise it so people will know ahead of time when.
Buddy, do you want your tip jar? Where's your tip jar? Oh, I knew that would get you up. Oh yeah, he knows those 2 words. Tip jar.
The tip jar. He knows a tip jar, and look, he's looking a little distressed because that tip jar is getting troublingly empty. So I think Buddy speaks for all of us when he says we'd like a little more in that tip jar. So, but in all seriousness, anything that you can contribute would be most helpful. We don't have billionaire benefactors. Mark Zuckerberg has turned down our entreaties. So we live off the kindness of strangers, and so whatever you can help will be most appreciated. And there's Buddy. You can see there's that sweet face. He wants his tips.
He is worthy.
Yeah. So, but remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.